Nachos. The universal stadium food. The party dish. The late-night snack that requires almost no effort and somehow always works. Tortilla chips. Melted cheese. Simple. Ancient. Mexican. Except it isn't ancient. And the version you eat at every sporting event in America has almost nothing to do with Mexico. Nachos were invented in 1943. In a border town in Texas. By a maître d' named Ignacio Anaya, who was improvising a snack for a group of US military wives who showed up after the kitchen had closed. That's the documented origin. One man. One restaurant. One improvised plate. Here is what happened next. A cheese company got involved. A stadium vendor got involved. And what began as a desperate improvisation in a small Mexican restaurant became the highest-grossing single food item in American stadium history. Not because it was good, but because it was engineered to be unavoidable. The cheese on your stadium nachos is not cheese. It is a processed industrial emulsion, sodium citrate, modified food starch, artificial cheddar flavoring, and hydrogenated vegetable oil that was specifically designed to stay liquid at room temperature for extended periods. That cheese was never meant to taste good. It was meant to survive a 2-hour baseball game in a paper tray. And the chip. The tortilla chip you eat nachos with is not a traditional corn chip. It is a standardized industrial product designed for structural load bearing, engineered to hold a calculated weight of processed cheese product without structural failure at the angle of a typical stadium seat. This is not a Mexican food story. This is a story about how an improvised snack got hijacked by the industrial food system and turned into the single most profitable food item in sports entertainment history.
Piedras Negras, Coahuila, México.
1943. It is after closing time at the Victory Club restaurant, located just across the Rio Grande from Eagle Pass, Texas. A group of women, wives of U.S. military personnel stationed at the nearby Fort Duncan, arrive at the restaurant looking for food. The head chef has gone home. The kitchen is effectively closed. Ignacio Anaya, who went by the nickname Nacho, is the maître d'. He is not a chef, but he is responsible for these guests. He goes into the kitchen and improvises. He finds tortillas. He cuts them into triangles and fries them. He takes what cheese is available, accounts say it was Wisconsin cheddar or possibly Colby, and melts it over the chips. He adds sliced pickled jalapeños from the pantry. He serves it. The women love it. They ask what it's called. Anaya names it after himself.
Nachos especiales.
Nachos special dish. The simplicity of the recipe is its first corporate vulnerability. There is nothing proprietary about melted cheese on fried tortilla chips. There is no trade secret. No patent. No unique technique. The combination of fried corn tortilla, cheese, and jalapeno is too elemental to protect. Anaya never trademarked the name. He never claimed ownership of a recipe that was, by its nature, unownable. He later opened his own restaurant called Nachos Restaurant in Piedras Negras, but he made no fortune from the invention that would eventually generate billions of dollars in annual revenue at American sports venues. The dish spread through word of mouth across the Texas border region through the late 1940s and 1950s. It remained a regional specialty. A border food. Known in South Texas, occasionally appearing in Tex-Mex restaurants. Not yet a national phenomenon. That required a television camera and an NFL game. Texas Stadium. Arlington, Texas. Home of the Dallas Cowboys. A San Antonio-based food entrepreneur named Frank Liberto has been working on a problem. He wants to sell nachos at stadium concession stands. The logistics are not straightforward. Traditional nachos require melted cheese applied to chips and served immediately. Cheese solidifies when it cools. In a stadium concession environment, where food must be prepared in advance, held for extended periods, and served rapidly to thousands of people, a cheese that solidifies is not a viable product. Liberto's solution was to engineer a cheese that didn't solidify. A processed cheese sauce, an emulsified product using sodium citrate as an emulsifying agent and modified food starch as a thickener, that remained pourable at room temperature and did not require heating to apply to chips. The chemistry of this product exploits the same emulsification science that Kraft had pioneered with processed cheese slices in the 1920s. Sodium citrate chelates calcium ions in the cheese protein matrix, disrupting the casein network and producing a stable emulsion that does not separate at room temperature. The modified food starch acts as a viscosity agent, giving the sauce its characteristic texture, thick enough to stay on a chip, thin enough to pour from a dispenser. The product Liberto developed was called Rico's cheese sauce. It was manufactured by his company Rico's Products. It was not marketed as a culinary product. It was marketed as a concession solution. The first stadium deployment of Rico-style nacho cheese sauce was at Texas Stadium in 1976. Sportscaster Howard Cosell mentioned it on air during a Monday Night Football broadcast. The national television audience heard the word nachos, and the rest of the country became aware of the product simultaneously. That broadcast is the moment nachos became American. Let's be precise about what stadium nacho cheese actually is. The Rico-style processed cheese sauce that dominates American stadium, movie theater, and ballpark concessions is not cheese in the culinary or regulatory sense used for traditional dairy products. Under FDA standards of identity, processed cheese sauce must contain a specified minimum percentage of cheese solids. The industrial nacho cheese product meets this minimum, technically. But the flavor, texture, and chemical composition of industrial nacho cheese sauce diverge significantly from natural cheddar or Colby cheese. The ingredient list of a typical commercial nacho cheese sauce includes water, modified food starch, cheddar cheese, in smaller proportion than the product's name implies, sodium phosphate, emulsifier, salt, artificial color, annatto or synthetic yellow dye, natural and artificial flavoring, and preservatives. The cheese flavor is partially artificial. The color is added. The specific fluorescent orange-yellow of stadium nacho cheese is produced by annatto coloring or synthetic dye, not by the natural carotenoids present in aged cheddar. The texture is produced by the starch system, not by the cheese. When you heat this product, it flows because the starch network breaks down, not because cheese protein is melting. When it cools, it does not re-solidify into a solid cheese. It congeals into a rubbery gel because of the starch, not the dairy protein. Industrial nacho cheese sauce is, chemically, closer to a flavored starch gel with dairy components than to a melted cheese product. This matters because the consumer experience, the association between nachos and melted cheese, is based on a visual approximation of melting that is actually a starch phase transition. The brain processes yellow liquid on chips as melted cheese because yellow liquid on chips looks like what melted cheese should look like. The flavor profile was engineered to reinforce that perception. The artificial cheddar flavoring compounds, primarily diacetyl and various short-chain fatty acids, produce olfactory and taste signals associated with cheese. The brain assembles these signals into the experience of cheese even when the product's cheese content is minimal. The chip is not incidental to the nacho story. The chip is the other half of the engineering. Traditional corn tortillas are made from masa harina, nixtamalized corn flour, water, and salt. Fried tortilla chips made from leftover tortillas have existed in Mexican-American cooking for decades before nachos became a commercial product. But the tortilla chip sold in bags and used in stadium nachos is not a fried leftover tortilla. It is an industrially produced product with a specific geometry, a specific thickness, a specific moisture content, and a specific strength profile, all of which are engineered to perform a structural function. Frito-Lay, the PepsiCo subsidiary that dominates the American tortilla chip market, produces chips to specifications that include structural load tolerance. A Tostitos chip is designed to hold a measured quantity of salsa, guacamole, or cheese sauce without fracturing. The thickness and geometry are calibrated to the typical dip and scoop motion. The moisture content is controlled to maintain the structural rigidity required to complete that motion without chip failure. This engineering process involves corn variety selection. Specific corn hybrids with consistent starch-to-protein ratios are used for masa production to ensure consistent chip strength. Nixtamalization control. The alkaline cooking process that converts raw corn into masa affects the degree of starch gelatinization, which in turn affects the final chip's brittleness to rigidity ratio. Extrusion geometry. The cut shape of the chip is not arbitrary. The triangle geometry maximizes structural strength at the dipping apex while minimizing material per chip, reducing ingredient cost without sacrificing performance. The tortilla chip is a precision industrial product. It has been engineered to fail gracefully, to snap cleanly rather than crumble, at a predictable stress point. The snapping sound when you bite a chip is the acoustic signature of controlled fracture in a design structure. Frito-Lay's tortilla chip production patents are not public knowledge in their full specificity. But the company has invested decades in the food engineering that produces the chip experience, and that engineering is as deliberate as anything Kraft or Heinz ever did. The stadium deployment of nachos was not accidental. It was the result of a concession industry that had specific requirements, and found in nachos a product that met all of them. Stadium concession economics are governed by throughput. A concession stand at a Major League Baseball game must serve thousands of customers during a compressed window, primarily between innings and during the seventh inning stretch. Products that take too long to prepare, require too many components, or are difficult to serve in high volumes are systematically disadvantaged. Nachos solved multiple concession problems simultaneously. Chips are shelf-stable. They can be pre-portioned into paper trays hours before the game with no quality degradation. The cheese sauce is held in heated dispensers that maintain it in pourable state. Assembly time per order is approximately 4 seconds. A nacho station can produce hundreds of units per inning with minimal labor. The price-to-cost ratio was exceptional. Corn chips are among the cheapest food commodities by weight. Industrial cheese sauce has a low cost per serving. A stadium nacho order priced at $7 to $12 has a food cost of approximately 60 to 90 cents. This margin profile made nachos one of the most profitable items in stadium concession history. And once nachos were established in NFL stadiums following the 1976 Monday Night Football broadcast, they spread to MLB stadiums, NBA arenas, college sports venues, and eventually to movie theaters, amusement parks, and airport terminals. The distribution channel is now so thoroughly saturated that nachos appear in virtually every American food service venue that operates a concession stand. The original improvised dish has been completely displaced by the industrial product in every high-volume context. Ignacio Anaya died in 1975, 1 year before Frank Liberto served his first industrial nacho at Texas Stadium. 1 year before Howard Cosell said the word on national television and changed everything. Anaya never received compensation for the dish. He never held a trademark. He never licensed the name. He ran his restaurant in Piedras Negras for years, serving his own version of nachos, real tortilla chips with real melted cheese and real pickled jalapeños, to tourists and locals who had heard the story. The city of Piedras Negras eventually declared October 21st International Nachos Day in honor of Anaya. A statue was erected in his memory. The town recognizes him as the inventor. None of this generated revenue. The money was made by the people who came after. Who took the name? Who took the concept? Who replaced the real cheese with emulsified starch? Who replaced the fresh tortilla chips with engineered corn products? Who placed the result in 60,000 stadium concession stands and charged $12 a tray? Anaya got the credit. The food industry got the billions. Nachos are real food. The original dish, fried tortilla triangles, melted cheddar, pickled jalapeno, is a genuine invention by a real person in a specific place at a specific time. That version of nachos is delicious. It is simple. It is honest. The nachos you eat at a stadium are something else entirely. The chip was engineered to a structural specification by a corporation with more food scientists than chefs. The cheese was formulated to stay liquid at room temperature using a processed dairy emulsion that legally qualifies as cheese but functionally behaves like a flavored starch gel. The entire product was priced, positioned, and distributed by a sports entertainment industry that identified the food as the highest margin concession item available, not because of its taste, but because of its economics. Ignacio Anaya improvised a snack for hungry strangers after closing time. He was generous and resourceful and inventive. He made something real. What the food industry made from that something real is a product that shares a name and a visual silhouette with Anaya's invention and almost nothing else. The cheese has never touched a cheese grater. The chips have never been near a traditional tortilla. The jalapeños, where they exist, are canned. The price is $10 to $14 for a product with an ingredient cost of under $1. That gap, between $1 of industrial product and $14 of brand experience, is the business of nachos. Not the recipe. Not the history. Not the maître d' in Piedras Negras who named a snack after himself. The business is the industrial infrastructure that replaced the original with a manufactured approximation and then charged you stadium prices to eat it. Ignacio Anaya never got rich. The food that bears his nickname made billions for people he never met. That is the fake history of nachos. Let us know in the comments what we should cover next. Thanks for watching.